We're finally ready to start working on the table cells themselves as far as what's in them and what needs to be changed about what's in them, putting edited content into a database and stuff like that. We've now replaced all those labels and we've gotten rid of the overlay, so you just tab in and start typing, or you click in and start typing. Everything works. You can tap from place to place and it's simple. There's a lot of code deleted that was needed with those labels. It's no longer needed. The overlay was a big fat pain and we don't have to do it anymore. We still have an overlay up here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's an overlay. You can type into that. And this here is a label. You can't type into it. It's now time to do something about it. This is not a case where you've got a lot of symmetry in the background. You have an event type, a date, a place, particulars, and age, and they're all different. We're dealing with these first 5 columns 0 through 4. And we're working on particulars column first. This works. You can go control-click a name and change to that person. It's kind of slow, but it works. You can go up here and change to a person, say Patricia. The ones with lots of events are slower because you got to display it and you got to format it. And there's a problem with the code. It's not resizing the scroll bar perfectly, or something is not resizing perfectly so that you got this extra space, but we're not worried about that right now. It's got the right content and everything's pretty hunky-dory. What we need to be able to do is change, starting with this. This is the easiest one because it's just text. We need to be able to change what's in here. So you type that and tab out and have that go directly into the database. Right now, Control F5 will redraw. It's gone. It didn't go into the database because right now there's no code telling it to go in. There's some code, but we're not using it because it's old code, but we will be able to use some parts, I suppose. We're dealing with one column at a time because every column is going to have different methods. First, we're going to do particulars. Age is just as easy. Then we're going to do date. Right now, we want to get down to the basic mechanics of how do you tab in, start typing, and tab out and have that go directly into the database. After we figure that part out, then in some of these or all of them, we're going to have some validation to do before that new data or that edited data can go into the database. And if it doesn't go in, then we're going to put the old stuff back in. Okay, he's turned in by a music teacher. He's a runaway. Now, let's say I put that into a variable. This is the original text, prior value. Let's say I put that into a variable and then tab out. Just pretend. Now let's say deleted that. Don't want it there anymore. That's an edit. Okay. Let's say that it didn't pass validation for some reason. When you tab out, that's still going to be there. I came to some realizations, which is that I'm trying to do 2 things at once. I shouldn't be doing that. It's wasted me some time here. Wasted a couple hours this morning. I didn't make you watch it. I cut that out of this movie. What you got to do here is use what was working already, and then if you want to change it, then change it after it's working. What we really need to do is remove this overlay because it has been used as an intermediary. We're not trying to redesign anything at this point. We had code that worked. It worked for a long time. We're going to adapt what we had. What was being done with the overlay, we're just going to do that. I want to do it in general the way I was doing it. I want to make a few changes instead of rewriting the whole scenario. We're going to do it the simple way. We're going to fix one thing at a time, like as in we've already got code that works. We're just going to make it work without the overlay. First, we're going to have some errors. Right now, this is not working. This works with an event. Get initial, this works on focus in. Don't want to copy that last character because it's a new line character that Tkinter puts in its text widget. Now what's causing this to work? Nothing. Something in the overlay code, which is all commented out, used to make this work. Let's see what. See if we can use the old code without having an overlay being an intermediary. The point here is to change nothing unless I'm really sure that it has only to do with the overlay and is of no use to us. Normally, OK Edit Cell would have run when you press the OK button on the overlay. Now instead, we want this same code to run. So we're going to copy the important part and just leave it set here unchanged in case we need to look at it some more. Here's the one thing that might be interesting. And here's the other thing that might be interesting. The rest of it is strictly about the overlay itself. OK edit cell now needs to run on focus out, whereas before nothing ran on focus out. We don't have that column. Yes, we do. We called it something else. We have this. What about widge? Now called cell. Don't have to double click anymore. Good. It's trying to do something, and it's going to if I get rid of the errors. Widge.config. As you see, this used to take the text that had been typed into the overlay, which is an entry, an input, validated, and then once you click the OK button, then it would close, and I guess it did the validation like that. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot something. This is now requiring an event as a first parameter. That event is required whether you need it or not. Tkinter does need it, but it often comes in handy. You can get positions and stuff out of it for the widget. You can get the name of the widget to which the event applied, tabbed out, and no errors. So here's my question. If I change it to Mila Schreiner, it's already Mila Schreiner, but you can redraw the table this way. Is ABC going to still be there? No. No errors, but it didn't go in the database yet. Do we have something called update particulars? Yep. And that runs if call number equals 3, and this is up here inside of update. This is a very long method. Update DB. So chances are update DB is not running. We're just going one step at a time here. Column number 3 is the 4th column. Why is this not running? See if any of this is completely wrong. Yes. What causes get final to run? This runs on focus out, and that runs get final. And get final has a widget and a column. I don't know about if we need that widget or not. If this is none, it's returning, not doing anything. That will turn out to be one of our teeny tiny little problems. We're not doing anything. Why is self.initial equal to none right here? You got to ask yourself, what is self.initial? Well, self.initial is very important. Now we're over here in place. Tab in to particulars like that. I forgot to save the return value off of the get function. I saw that earlier today too, and I didn't do anything at that point. Thought it would be more fun to go sifting through rollbacks later on instead of fixing it while I was seeing it. And now we've got a self-initial. Instead of none, it's a blank string. Sounds a lot more reasonable to me. Validate place, that is a class. And we want to see if we remember to delete the overlay parameter. So that's an init. Did not remember. Okay, now listen. Only a few minutes ago this was tabbing correctly, and it still does tab correctly, but it wasn't leaving all these colored spaces behind. So something that I just changed very recently, within the past hour, has altered the correct functioning of this highlight. I see this and I see all these parameters and I think, wow, you know, it's very dangerous to change code that works. Especially for the fun of it, I think while I do this, I'm going to do this at the same time. Yeah. Hope you have a nice rollback version waiting for you to go find it. Self.event appears to have had no value assigned to it at the right time. Oh, there you go. Oh. Need to do one thing at a time. I like a kid in a candy store. When I start rewriting code, I just want to rewrite all of it, and anything I see that I don't like just a little bit, let's rewrite that at the same time. And then what you get is conflicting goals. You change this, you change that, you change that, you change this. Tab in, get a blank string as self-initial. ABC, tab out. And why did it redraw like that? Because that's what it's always done. It didn't always used to be so flashy, but look what it did. It redrew and it put that information in the database and it worked. Question is, do we really have to redraw this whole table every time we change one thing? And I'm kind of hoping that we don't. I've been doing that all along. And I'd like to change that, but hey, what did I just say? Don't change two things at once. Get this thing working, and then if you don't like the flashy, all right, then do something about that then. And now for what we've all been waiting for. All the usual keyboard shortcuts work on Tkinter's text widget. Control arrow. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. That is the moment we've been waiting for. That was really easy for you because I deleted about 3 hours worth of struggling against ridiculousness. My desire to change everything all at once, which you can't do if you're me because you're not smart enough. But we got what we wanted. Now I'd like to get rid of this multiplicity of highlighted things. So there's something changing the color of these cell widgets when it goes into focus that is not working to unchange the color on focus out. And I'm going to try and fix that. Over here in the cell class, we've got highlight and unhighlight. This was working this morning. It's not working this afternoon. These work on focus in and focus out. It's a cell widget based on a text widget, Tkinter text widget. If you click in a cell widget, it goes into focus. If you tab into it, it goes into focus. Now this afternoon what we did was we reinstituted some old code and suddenly the highlighting doesn't go away. So it's my belief at this exact moment that these two functions aren't running at all. They're bound to events. Let's find out. What else is bound to focus in? Focus in, highlight is working, we know that. Unhighlight's not working, and this is not printing, so we know it's not working. Did we add a focus out? I know I planned to, yeah. Now if I add this optional third parameter, what happens is that this will prevent this callback from taking the place of this callback. It will add to, they will both run. See if that was that easy to fix. Yep. That was click, now tab. Okay. Very nice. I'd kind of like to get rid of the notion, which is an old notion, I've been doing it forever, that changing one cell of a table means the whole table should be redrawn to save on code and complexity, since it requires the user to see a lot of flashing while new widgets are replacing old and being formatted alternately, but that's not my main goal right now. We seem to have fixed one column, the easy one. See, we got an apostrophe now in Granny's house. We got ABC here. Age is the same story. It's just as easy. You can say anything about age that you want. This is Mila Schreiner. She's a fictional person. Let's say 1 year, 3 months, and 213 days. Tab out. And there you go. Does this mean we're finished with age? That was easy. I would like to get rid of that flashing, but not right now. See, I've always had this thing where if you change something, you're going to redraw that whole table. And if it's a big table, it flashes a long time, a whole second or more. People don't want to see that flashing, you know. I mean, is there really any reason why this whole table has to be redrawn. It's basically a formatting thing, see? I probably didn't want to see part of that. Like while you were typing it, you only saw part of it. Oh, that's not good. When you tab out and it goes into the database, you also want to be able to read it. That's one of Treebard's big beefs with other genealogy software is you got all these resizable columns and truncated data and all kinds of junk that is very bad feng shui. Genealogy software should be beautiful. We need to be telling a story here about people and not doing like, the minimum to display some data. That's not what we're doing in Treebard. We're not doing the minimum to display some data. We want to tell a story about a human being. That's one reason why we're using the current person approach so that everything on this whole entire page relates to Mila Schreiner, and you can't change anything that doesn't. If you want to change Tyrone's name, you got to go over to Tyrone's page. Make him the current person. Now there's Tyrone. You want to change his name, you go to his names tab. You change Tyrone's name, see? That's a considerable amount of flashing to have to sit there and watch every time you change the current person. I was going to fix age, but looks like the darn thing already works. I was just trying to say, you got to be able to say anything you want in age because you might have this much information. And if you feel like saying YEAR and MONTHS, fine. There is no correct way to do two things, and I'll tell you what they both are. There's no correct way to validate an age field, and there's no correct way to calculate an age field. These are very important concepts down here at Treebard University. This is a conclusions table. You put what you want here. And generally that's going to be something you see on a source. But if you've got conflicting sources, you go over here and you make your different age assertions right here. Anyway, I'll do that some other time. It looks to me like age is already done. There doesn't appear to be anything else to do with it. And that's because, why? Because I fixed particulars and that fixed age. Because they're both the same. They don't do any validating. Of course, let's see what happens if you say that somebody was born at the age of 10, which is not a good time to be born. In fact, it's not a good time to exist, as I recall, but tab out. Oh, that doesn't need to be fixed right now because our procedure is not changing the age if somebody tries to change it to something other than 0. What about 0.0? What happens? Tab out. Okay, well, I do want to get rid of the notion of redrawing. What's needed is reformatting. That's the real goal. The real goal is to reformat so that you can actually read this after you enter it. One thing that you could do is compromise and say, well, there's already a way to redraw manually. The user can redraw anytime they want by going like this, Control F5. Say you put something in here that's longer than the rest of the column, you can redraw manually if you don't like the way it looks. That's one possible design compromise I could make so that I could get rid of this automatic redrawing of the whole darn table. In here, same story. This is a very complicated table to work on. It's not a lot of fun, but it's more funner than it used to be. The first time was fairly hellacious. It's not that bad now. The next one is date. Date is not an autofill. There's lots of validation though, but it's all self-contained. This offspring is Sally F. Euclid. She's up here. She has no birth date, no death date. What happens if I add an offspring event for Mila? August 1901, August 23. And let's say that's approximate about. You can see the whole thing by going up and down because it's lines. And that's how freely you can enter dates in Treebard. I just did something in a strange order as the information occurred to me. Now let's tab out and see what happens. It's going to try and validate that and reformat it. Insert. It actually went into the database last time. There was only one problem with that. And this time when I reopened the program, it was already there and it's formatted. And look, before all three offspring were down here in the undated section. Undated events and attributes at the bottom. Dated events and attributes are at the top. And when I added a date, it went up here and interfiled itself amongst the other dated events and attributes so that these things at the top are all sorted by date. Let's try another one. April 29, 1903. Tab out. April 1903, no errors. I thought that was going to be hard. I guess I must have already done the work last time. Seems like a good idea. Do it right last time instead of, wait until this time, do it right this. So, yeah, I don't mean to gloat, but, well, I gloat a little bit. Whatever floats your boat, you know what I mean? And now we got two offspring up here, and they're both sorted by date. Let's give this last fella a nice little old birthday. 15 January 1887, approximately. So I type CA, but over here in formatting, it's been told we want to see this when it's formatted. So let's tab out. 14 January 1887, about 14 January 1887, and this event is now interfiled by date. You can say 3005 here. The birth would still come first. The death would still come last, except for burial and the other after-death events would come after death. And then under that, the undated events and attributes. This is going along much faster than I expected. What if we were to try and add a place? Let's say this person was born in Aspen, Colorado, ASPEN. Oops, it doesn't autofill. Let's choose something a little bit different. I want the new place thing to open up. The reason it's not autofilling is because we're using cell instead of cell autofill. I can fix that pretty easy. But then cell autofill does not yet match entry autofill place, which was used here before. So place is going to be a little bit more complicated to get it working the same. I'll just think of a new place now. Overlay. On line 264 in places. All right, we've already got rid of it here. It's no longer going to exist. How many places in this module do we mention overlay? 16! Oh my. Let's do easy ones first. We are in open duplicate place dialog. Well, there's two in there, including the one I said let's do it later, so let's do that one later too, because we can just ignore this. See when they have the class name in front of them like this? These are not instance variables, they're class variables. So that's going to be the validate place class. Overlay is gone. Cancel place dialogues. You can see that this wasn't very easy. I'd say possibly with one of its three parameters removed and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code removed and one if statement removed. I'd say that's going to be a lot easier to maintain, understand, extend, etc. This one is only about overlay, so it can probably go away right now. This is a little bit scary because it interacts with overlay, so we might have to find another way to set this value equal to 0, whatever it is. Oh, this is annoying. Look. Validate place overlay and overlay. You have to test both of them. I bet that drove me crazy. In fact, I almost remember that. See how many of these can be ignored. Validate place open dialogues. That looks important. I wouldn't mess with that. I wouldn't mess with that. Label entry dynamic. I'm sure we're not using that, but we might be using it somewhere, so it's not hurting anybody's feelings right now. Leave it where it is for now. Now we're setting that equal to 0, whatever that is. It probably is what it says it is, opened dialogues. There are dialogues that open up in regards to place validation because you want to know, is it a new place? Is it the same place as you already mentioned called Paris? You know, the one with the Eiffel Tower in it, or is it Paris, Texas? Overlay 23 times in places. I'll just make a notation here. Wouldn't that be nice if I could just get rid of 2 whole if statements and the same overly complicated brain melting problem that I remember from the past? So this is important. This is going to be needed. They're both basically the same thing. What they're doing is they're going into the overlays input, which is where you would have been typing the edited content, and you're getting it. And if there's nothing in there, then you're just unlinking the place from the event. And it kind of looks to me like we haven't actually done it yet, which is fine. I'm not finished with the place code because there is now a place tab. And I was in the middle of writing methods for the place tab when I decided to take a slight detour. I don't remember how many years ago that was. 1.5, 2, I don't remember. What we want to do instead is get the content of where we are putting stuff in. Therefore, instead of passing overlay here to the validate place class, we have to pass the cell where we're actually getting our input from. What we do then is try to pass that cell instead of passing the overlay. And that's going to be a lot different because here the overlay is a class variable of the validate place class. And it worked out, I guess, because there was only one overlay, it would be reused and then not deleted or destroyed, but hidden. So there was only one. We had one for places, we had one for event types, and one was for everything else. This code hasn't been written yet. But up here, this code has. I'll see you soon.